Good morning, everyone. Management of natural resources. So, what changes can you make in your habits to become more environment friendly? We can be eco friendly by using the principle of 3Rs, that is, reduce, reuse, and recycle, and putting off unnecessary lights and fans when you not need. So you have to putting off the unnecessary lights and fans. So using unleaded petrols in vehicles, you use the unleaded petrols in the vehicles, and using local transports like buses or a train. That's the changes you make in your habits to become the more environment friendly. So, what would be the advantages of exploiting resources with short term aims? So, if resources are exploited with short term aims, so it will be very beneficial for the present generation, as it will help in growth of economy at a faster rate. How would these advantages differ from the advantages of using a long term perspective in managing our resources? So, if resources are used in accordance with short term aims, present generation will be able to utilize the resources properly for growth and development. But if we use resources with long term aims, future generations will also be able to utilize the resources for fulfilling its needs. Thus, would be better to use our natural resources with a long term perspective so that it could be used by the present generation, so as well as conserved for future use, but it will derive future generation from the benefits of these resources, as resources are exhaustible. So why do you think there should be equitable distribution of resources, and what force would be working against in equitable distribution of our resources? So what are the equitable differences you have to see in that the resources? So here, natural resources of the earth must be distributed among the peoples uniformly so that each and everyone gets his share of the resource. So human greed, corruption, and the lobby of the rich and powerful are the force working against an equitable distribution of resources. You have to see that the natural resources of the earth must be distributed. ಸೊ among the uniformly. ಸೊ ಯೂನಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಗಿ ಈ ನ್ಯಾಚುರಲ್ ರಿಸೋರ್ಸಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಅರ್ಥದಲ್ಲಿ ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದನ್ನು ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಚ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಎವ್ರಿ ಒನ್ gets its shares of the resource. For example, human greed, corruption, and the lobby of the rich and powerful are the source working against an equitable distribution of resources. And then, so why do we conserve forest and wildlife? ಯಾಕೆ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮತ್ತು ವೈಲ್ಡ್ ಲೈಫನ್ನು ಕನ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು? ನನಗೆ ಫಾರ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಸಿ ದಟ್ ದ ವೈಲ್ಡ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ should be conserved for the following reasons. So wildlife and forest should be conserved for the following reasons: to prevent loss of ecological stability, to preserve biodiversity, to obtain medicine, wood, fruits, etc. So products in a sustainable manner, to promote social and economic growth. So you have to see that we conserve the forest and wildlife should be conserved. The following reasons are: to prevent the loss of ecological stability, to preserve the biodiversity, to obtain medicines, wood, fruits and products in a sustainable manner, and to promote the social and economic growth. So suggest some approaches towards the conservation of forest. So forest can be conserved by preventing the process of deforestation, preventing cattle ranching in the forest, promoting afforestation, and preventing the soil erosion, and mobilizing the people's active for cooperation. You have to suggest that the some approaches toward the conservation of forest are ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಕನ್ಸರ್ವ್ಡ್. ಯಾವ ಥರ ನಾವು ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟನ್ನು ಕನ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಅಂದರೆ ಪ್ರಿವೆಂಟಿಂಗ್ ದ ಲಾಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಡಿಫಾರೆಸ್ಟೇಷನ್. ಸೊ ಮರಗಿಡಗಳನ್ನು ಲಾಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದನ್ನು ಪ್ರಿವೆಂಟನ್ನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಡಿಫಾರೆಸ್ಟೇಷನನ್ನು ಆಗೋದನ್ನು ತಡಿಬೇಕು. ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಡಿಸಾರ್ಡರ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ತಡಿಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಪ್ರಿವೆಂಟಿಂಗ್ ಕ್ಯಾಟಲ್ ರಾಂಚಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್. ಮತ್ತು ಕ್ಯಾಟಲ್ಸ್ ಬಂದು ಸೊ ಏನು ನಮ್ಮ ಬೆಳೆಗಳನ್ನು ಅಥವಾ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ಗಳನ್ನು ನಶಿಸುತ್ತೋ ಸೊ ಆ ಒಂದು ರ್ಯಾಂಚಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನು ಆದಷ್ಟು ಪ್ರಿವೆಂಟನ್ನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಮತ್ತು ಪ್ರಮೋಟಿಂಗ್ ಅಫಾರೆಸ್ಟೇಷನ್. ಸೊ ಬೆದ್ದು ಹೋಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಏನು ಮರವನ್ನು ಇದೆಯೋ ಸೊ ಆ ಮರವನ್ನು ಮತ್ತೆ ಬೆಳೆಸೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಪ್ರಮೋಟನ್ನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಪ್ರಮೋಟಿಂಗ್ ಅಫಾರೆಸ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಪ್ರಿವೆಂಟ್ ದ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಎರೋಷನ್. ಆದಷ್ಟು ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಎರೋಷನ್ ಆಗುವ ಹಾಗೆ ಪ್ರಿವೆಂಟನ್ನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಮತ್ತು ಮೊಬೈಲೈಸಿಂಗ್ ದ ಪೀಪಲ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಫಾರ್ ಕೋಆಪರೇಷನ್ and find out about the traditional systems of water harvesting management in your region. ನಿಮ್ಮ ರೀಜನಲ್ಲಿ ವಾಟರ್ ಹಾರ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ಟ್ರೆಡಿಷನಲ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಹೇಳ್ರಿ ಅಂತಂದು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. The traditional systems of water harvesting in different regions are ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್. ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ರೀಜನ್ಸ್ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಥರ ಆಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಟ್ರೆಡಿಷನಲ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮನ್ನು ಇದೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ದ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಹಾರ್ವೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ಅವರ್ ರೀಜನ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಪಾಂಡ್ಸ್, ಪೇಟ್ಸ್, ಲೇಕ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಅದರ್ ರಿಸರ್ವಿಯರ್ಸ್ ವರ್ ರೈನ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಈಸ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ಡ್. ಸೊ ರೈನ್ ವಾಟರನ್ನು ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ನಿಮ್ಮೇನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಪಾಂಡ್ಸು, ಫೀಟ್ಸ್, ಲೇಕ್ಸ್ ಮತ್ತು ಅದರ್ ರಿಸರ್ವರ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ರೈನ್ ವಾಟರನ್ನು ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ವಾಟರ್ ಹಾರ್ವೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ದ ಟ್ರೆಡಿಷನಲ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಆಫ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಹಾರ್ವೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ರೀಜನ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ಸ್. So the systems of water harvesting in your regions are ponds, pits, lakes and other reservoirs. So rainwater is stored. And then compare the above systems with the probable systems in hilly mountain areas or plateau regions. So in mountainous areas, instead of traditional water harvesting system, check dams are built across the seasonally flooded gullies. So in this system, running water is stored and diverted to the required places. Such water does not remain for long. Hence, there is a less chance of becoming polluted like that of pond water. So find out the source of the water in your region locality. So is water from these sources available to all peoples so living in that area? So in our location, water is available from the following sources: through pipelines supplied by municipal corruption department to the houses. So peoples also obtain water from hand pumps installed nearby. Some peoples are used the locationally. So some peoples in that area used the water through the pipeline supplies in the municipal corporation department to the houses. And peoples also obtained the water from hand pumps installed nearby. And what changes would you suggest in your home in order to be environment friendly? So you have to see that the environment friendly, segregate waste into recyclable and non-recyclable. ಸೊ ಯೂಸ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಸಿಟಿ ಜುಡಿಷಿಯಸ್ಲಿ. ಆದಷ್ಟು ನೀರು ಮತ್ತು ವಿದ್ಯುತ್ ಎರಡೂ ಕೂಡ ಆದಷ್ಟು ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಕಡಿಮೆಯಾಗಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಸೊ ಯು ಬಿಕಮ್ ಎಕೋ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಲಿ, ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಲಿ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಡು ನಾಟ್ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಫುಡ್. ಆದಷ್ಟು ಫುಡ್ಡನ್ನು ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಕೂಡ್ದು. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ರೀಯೂಸ್ ನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಪೇಪರ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಐಟಮ್ಸ್. ಆದಷ್ಟು ರೀಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಐಟಮ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು, ಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಐಟಮ್ಸ್ಗಳಾಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಪೇಪರನ್ನಾಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ರೀಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಪೇಪರ್ಸ್ ಮತ್ತು ಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಐಟಮ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಮತ್ತು ಕೀಪ್ ವಿಂಡೋಸ್ ಓಪನ್ ಟು ಪ್ರಿವೆಂಟ್ ಲೆಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಫ್ಯಾನ್ಸ್. ಆದಷ್ಟು ಫ್ಯಾನ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಿಂತ ವಿಂಡೋಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಓಪನ್ ಮಾಡೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಸಿಟಿಯನ್ನು ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಡಿಮೆಯಾಗಿ ಯೂಸನ್ನು ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಸಿಟಿ is used in the judiciously when you have to open the windows to prevent the less use of the fans. And follow 3Rs. 3Rs means reduce, recycle and reuse are the 3Rs you have to follow. And can you suggest some changes in your school which would make it environment friendly? So grow shrubs and small plants on the sides of internal wall and around the playground. So when you suggest some changes in your school, when you have become the eco-friendly, you have to know that the grow shrubs and the small plants on the sides of the internal walls and grown and around the playground. Harvest water from rooftop to be utilized for watering the plants. So harvesting water is very important. So when you harvest the water, so it can be used, we have to use more and more. So harvest water from the rooftops to be utilized for watering the plants. And arrange awareness programs among students through poster, exhibition and seminars. You have to arrange the awareness programs to the all peoples through the posters, exhibitions and seminars. Avoid wastage of water and paper. Should be recycled for handicraft purposes. So you have to use that the wastage of water. So must and should you have to notice the peoples. So you do not use the water, do not wastage of the water, and people should be recycled for the handicraft purposes. And we saw in this chapter that there are 4 main stakeholders when it comes to the forest and the wildlife. Which among these should have the authority to decide the management of forest produce? So why do you think so? The people who live in or around the forest are dependent on forest products for various aspects of life. People's ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಮತ್ತು ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟಿನ ಸುತ್ತಮುತ್ತ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಏನು ಪೀಪಲ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಇದೆಯೋ, ಸೊ ಅವರು ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟಾಗಿ ಯಾವುದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಲೈಫನ್ನು ಯಾವುದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಅವರು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಏನು ಪ್ರಾಡಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಇರುತ್ತೋ ಆ ಪ್ರಾಡಕ್ಟ್ಸನ್ನು ವೇರಿಯಸ್ ಲೈಫನ್ನು ಅವರು ಡಿಪೆಂಡೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹದನ್ನು ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ದ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ದಟ್ ಓನ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ಸ್ ದ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ರಿಸೋರ್ಸಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೇರ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್. The wildlife and nature enthusiast who wants to conserve the nature in its original form as far as possible. The local peoples who live in or around the forest must have more say in deciding the management of forest produce. They take the materials only up to their needs from the forest resources and try to replenish their resources. And then how can you as an individual contribute or make a difference to the management of forest and wildlife? Water resources, coal and petroleum. So let us see one by one. So forest and wildlife. So take part in community activities while focusing on the conserving the forest and wildlife. So you have to take the community activities when you focus the forest and the wildlife conservations. And as a tourist follow all principles of the as a tourist ಆಗಿ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟನ್ನು ಕನ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮುಖ್ಯಾಂಶಗಳನ್ನು ಫಾಲೋಅಪ್ಪನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದನ್ನು ಆ್ಯಸ್ ಎ ಟೂರಿಸ್ಟ್ ಫಾಲೋ ಆಲ್ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಕನ್ಸರ್ವೇಷನ್ and help the organizations engaged in conservation of forest and wildlife. And you also help the organizations of the engaged in the conservation of forest and the wildlife. And then water resources. So water in domestic use. Here domestic means used in the homes. ನಮ್ಮ ಗೃಹೋಪಯೋಗಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಆದಷ್ಟು ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ನೀರನ್ನು ಸೇವ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಸೇವ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಇನ್ ಡೊಮೆಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಯೂಸ್. ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಾಲ್ ಎ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಫಾರ್ ರೈನ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಹಾರ್ವೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್. ಸೊ ರೈನ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಹಾರ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮನ್ನು ನೀವು ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಾಲನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿರಿ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಾಲ್ ಎ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಫಾರ್ ರೈನ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಹಾರ್ವೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್. coal and petroleum. ಸೇವ್ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಸಿಟಿ ವೆನ್ ಎವರ್ ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ಡ್. ಸೊ ನಿಮಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಸಾಧ್ಯನೋ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ನೀವು ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಸಿಟಿಯನ್ನು ಸೇವ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಾಲ್ಡ್ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ ಗಾಡ್ಗೆಟ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಯೂಸ್ ದ ಲೆಸ್ ಪವರ್ಸ್. ಆದಷ್ಟು ನೀವು ಲೆಸ್ ಪವರ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ ಗಾಡ್ಗೆಟ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಾಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಟು ಯೂಸ್ ದ ಒನ್ ಬೈಕ್ ಇನ್ ಒನ್ ಹೋಮ್ ಆರ್ ಒನ್ ವೆಹಿಕಲ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಒನ್ ಹೋಮ್. ಒಂದು ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಬೈಕ್ ಅಥವಾ ಒಂದು ಹೋಮಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ಗಳನ್ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಸೊ ಅದು ನೀವೇನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಆದಷ್ಟು ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಿಂತನೂ ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಆದಷ್ಟು ಎಕೋ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಲಿಯನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಆಗ್ಬೋದು. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ what can you as an individual do to reduce your consumptions of the various natural resources? So save electricity, do not waste food, save water, using cooking gas instead of wood for cooking, and observe the principle of 3 Rs. They are reduce, recycle and reuse. So when an individual to reduce the consumption of various natural resources, you have to save the electricity, do not waste food, save water and use cooking gas instead of wood for cooking, and observe the principles of the 3 Rs: reduce, recycle and reuse. And list 5 things you have done over the last 1 week to conserve our natural resources, increase the pressure on our natural resources. The 5 things done to conserve the natural resources, they are: used energy efficient electrical appliances, use only as electricity as were required, kept the water tap closed while brushing the teeth, and convinced mother to cook the food in a solar cooker, used public transports for school instead of the parents' car. So these are all the things we have to done over the last 1 week to conserve our natural resources and increase the pressure on your natural resources. So 5 things done to increase the pressure on natural resources. They are: went to school on a bike instead of cycle, and forget the switch off the fan while going out. ನೀವು ಹೊರಗೆ ಹೋಗೋಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಮುಂಚೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಫ್ಯಾನಿನ ಸ್ವಿಚ್ಚನ್ನು ಆಫ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಅವಾಯ್ಡ್ ವೇಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಫುಡ್. ಆದಷ್ಟು ಫುಡ್ಡನ್ನು ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದನ್ನು ಅವಾಯ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಯೂಸ್ಡ್ ಮೋರ್ ಪೇಪರ್ ದೆನ್ ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ಪ್ರಿಂಟಿಂಗ್ ಆನ್ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್, ವೇಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ವಾಟರ್ ರಿಸೋರ್ಸಸ್. ಸೊ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ what very important question. So this question is arranged in 2 marks. What is ಚಿಪ್ಕೋ ಮೂಮೆಂಟ್? ವೈ ಶುಡ್ ವಿ ಕನ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್? ಚಿಪ್ಕೋ ಮೂಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು ಮತ್ತು ನಾವು ಯಾಕೆ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟನ್ನು ಕನ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದು. ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ ಚಿಪ್ಕೋ ಮೂಮೆಂಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಎ ನಾನ್ ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಮೂಮೆಂಟ್ ಫಾರ್ ಕನ್ಸರ್ವೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ನ್ಯಾಚುರಲ್ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟೇಟ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವೈಲ್ಡ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಆಫ್ ಪ್ರಿವೆಂಟಿಂಗ್ ದ ಎಕ್ಸೆಸಿವ್ ಕಮರ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೋಟೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್. So CHIPCO means is a non-political public movement for conservation of natural habitat and wildlife of preventing excessive commercial exploitation of forest. Here CHIPCO means hug, and the movement was started by the villagers of Garhwal by hugging trees. We should conserve the forest because it helps in protection of land, retaining subsoil water, checking flood, and thereby maintain the ecosystem. So an environmentalist on visit to your school suggests the use of 3 Rs to save the environment. Explain what he meant by 3 Rs and how you would follow his advice at home. The 3 Rs to save the environment: we can reduce pressure on the environment by applying the maximum of reduce, recycle and reuse in our lives. So here reduce means to use the less by switching off unnecessary lights and fans to save the electricity, by repairing leaky taps to save water, by not wasting food, And then these are all the uh, concepts you have to follow up in the reduce. When you use the less, it can be automatically you have to use the reduce and you save the environment. Here recycles means collect plastic, paper, glass and metal items and recycle these materials to make required things. In order to recycle, first segregation of waste is necessary so that materials that can be recycled are not dumped along with other waste. Here reuse means to use things again and again. ಪದೇ ಪದೇ ಒಂದು ಸರಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಪದೇ ಪದೇ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದನ್ನು. The used envelope can be reserved and used again instead of being thrown away. And the plastic bottles of food items like jam or pickle can be used for storing things in the kitchen. And then, what is meant by wildlife and how is wildlife important for us? Here wildlife means all those naturally occurring animals, plants and other species which are not cultivated, domesticated and termed wildlife. So wildlife is important for us because they provide great aesthetic value for human beings. They help in maintaining the ecological balance. So what is meant by sustainable management? So this question is very important in your examination, and this question is main question in this chapter and arise this chapter in this question. So what is meant by sustainable management? So the chapter name is also sustainable management of natural resources, and the question is also what is meant by sustainable management. And then the environmentalists are insisting upon the sustainable natural resources management. So states its four advantages also. You have to see that sustaining management if the management of natural resource which requires a long term perspective so that they last for the generations to come and not to be exploited by the short term gains. Its four advantages are as resources last for a longer duration, it provides steady economic growth, it helps ecological conservation, it reduces pollution. List any four characteristics of a good fuel. So higher calorific value, lesser pollution, sustainable for longer period and easily transportation. So what is coliform bacteria? What does its presence in water indicate? So coliform is a group of bacteria which is found in human intestine. So its presence in water indicates contamination by disease causing microbes. So its high presence in river and ponds elevates the risk of the waterborne diseases like gastroenteritis. And list any two common methods by which solid wastes of urban areas are disposed of. Here, burning in landfills, compostings, recycle and incineration are the two common methods by which solid waste of urban areas are disposed of. Okay. Thank you.